Hello, everyone, and happy March 2nd. I'm sitting once again in my nice, comfy chair, which gives you this wonderful view of the void in the corner of my apartment where I store my vacuum cleaner. So it's less exciting than some of the other places I could have filmed this. But yeah. So let's get into the news roundup. I'm Timmy Vilgiotti, Secretary of the Colorado Springs Mutual Aid and Solidarity Union, and I am doing the news roundup today. So let's get at it. There is going to be a protest outside of City Hall for trans rights and inclusion in response to Councilwoman Jill Gabler's comments on Twitter. This is going to be at March 9th, 10 a.m. outside City Hall. We will also be collecting food, clothing, and winter supplies donations for the Mutual Aid Union. If you want to stop by, you're more than welcome to, just for a little bit, just to show support or to drop off any stuff. We're going to try to have some of our new zines there, which will be really exciting because, zines we've been working pretty hard on. And if you can't stop by though in person, totally understandable with the pandemic going on, you can also stop by virtually and make comments on in the city council meeting. You can sign up to do that by following the instructions that I'm going to include in the description of this video. Basically, you just need to email your name and what you want to make a comment about to the one of the employees at the city council building, and they put you on the schedule to speak. And then you'll call in, wait for them to call on you, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak when they call on you. So, yeah, let me drink some water real fast. All right. So there is book club tonight as well at 6 p.m. We're still reading Seeing Like a State. We just got done with the chapter on the Russian Revolution. I don't remember what chapter we're on to next. I think it might actually be the one on either Tanzania or Mozambique. So it's going to be really exciting. Feel free to join, even if you aren't from Colorado. Just keep a lookout on our Facebook page. We post the link to the book club like about 15 minutes before it starts. It's usually something on Jitsi like COSMASU _book club or whatever. So just keep an eye out on the Facebook page. Or the Discord if you're in the Discord. And if you aren't in the Discord, just email csmutualaidunion@gmail.com and we can get you into the Discord. Last thing, this is kind of more like regular business of the Mutual Aid Union. We have a donation drop-off on Thursday, America the Beautiful Park, 5 to 7 p.m. Please bring winter supplies, bring anything that you think that the homeless community might need right now. The weather is going to, in Colorado, for those of you who are maybe new to the area, it does have a lot of snow in the spring still. So even if you think we're out of winter because it's sunny for like a couple of days, it could still snow. There's still constant sweeps going on. The last time our folks were out there, they were seeing tickets all up and down the trail on the Pikes Peak Greenway, which, as I've said many times, is disgusting, and our city should really be ashamed that they take it upon themselves to sweep people out and to punish them for trying to get access to food and shelter or just to live and exist in public space. So it just infuriates me. There is a distribution still, regularly planned Saturday distribution, 12:45 p.m. at Dorchester Park, and then there's going to be a general assembly at 7 p.m. on Saturday. That's also going to be on Jitsi. Keep an eye out on the Discord and the Facebook page for the link to those. Moving on to more local news, former Colorado Springs youth pastor at Friendship Assembly of God Church in Colorado Springs and the owner of Hellscream Entertainment, operator of a haunted house named Vincent Stites, was arrested on suspicion of having sex with an underage girl in the mid-2000s. The church he was associated with has denied that he worked with youth there and that he only assisted his now ex-wife with children's programs. In more positive news, there is going to be, and this is really exciting for me because I'm a transit nerd, and I really love transportation and roads. And I've always thought that this would be a great, this would have been a great idea to have while I lived out there. They're going to extend Centennial Boulevard south so that it connects with Fontanero. For those of you who who are like into just taking random exits and seeing where they lead, you may know that Fontanero is just like a totally useless exit. It you leave and you can either turn west and end up on some random dirt roads or Chestnut, or you can turn to the east and you end up in this weird utility place. So now though, Centennial is actually going to go all the way down to Fontanero, and it's going to connect it so that people can go off the highway and drive all the way up Centennial. So that way that takes a whole lot of stress off the Fillmore intersection, which is important because that Bluebird Hill, if someone's going to King Soopers or just trying to get down from anywhere in that kind of neighborhood into the onto I-25, they will now be able to take Centennial to get right onto I-25. So that should take a lot of traffic stress off of those residential neighborhoods off of Chestnut. It should take a lot of traffic stress off of Fillmore, which can get really nightmarish, especially in the snow with that big hill. And if you don't have a good car with that big giant Bluebird Hill, it just is kind of ridiculous. I live next to a fire station, a construction site, and a bar. Maybe you should edit that out because that gives a lot of information away about me, but there's a bunch of sirens, I'm saying, is why you're hearing all that noise. So I think that's great local news. I'm glad that they're doing it. I think there's always stuff that you could push for improvements, but this is why when you see any kind of increase to the Pikes Peak Regional Transit Authority on the ballot, it's good to go along with it. We could get into a whole discussion structurally about ways that could be made into a more democratic system, that it could be strengthened in a lot of ways and have more civic participation with it. But I still think it's good because they do good things and they improve our local transit, which does improve everyone's lives. So moving on to national news, FBI Director Christopher Wray was speaking before the Senate today. He made it clear that no evidence exists that, quote, anarchist violent extremists or people subscribing to Antifa, end quote, were involved in the insurrection. That's probably because on the same day of the insurrection, Antifa subscribers were given a 7-day trial of Disney Plus, and most of them were at home, enjoying the benefits of their Antifa subscription. For those of you who haven't subscribed to Antifa, it's only $20 a month, and you get lots of great benefits. Like free Molotov cocktails, free little books about anarchy. You can get a free magazine for your AK-47. Plus, after you're a member for a year, they actually send you an AK-47. So instead of just sitting around the house with all these magazines, you actually have the AK-47. Great program. Highly recommend it. This is indeed brought to you by Antifa Incorporated. Subscribe today at antifa.com. More than 260 defendants have been charged since January 6th. There's no evidence of widespread fraud that would have affected the election. Christopher Wray says that the January 6th insurrection was the inspiration for more extremism, and said that domestic terrorism is metastasizing, and that they currently have 2,000 open domestic terrorism investigations. So what you see happening there is that they are pushing for more and more pressure on who they consider extremists, more authority to crack down on domestic terrorism. And so on one level, while it's understandable, we had an insurrection, you can understand it, but they're also trying to push for that in order to expand the powers of the police state, which is already very, very powerful, to expand the powers for them to get surveillance, to expand their legitimacy. And what that ultimately ends up doing is it comes back around And when leftists or even just protesters for racial justice and equity are mobilizing, it gives them a lot more tools to use against them, which local police departments like CSPD can use to crack down on and harm local activists who are involved in like peaceful protests and in just generally just critiquing the state, because those police departments are very threatened by any kind of perceived questions of their legitimacy, and so when you start protesting them, they come at you really hard. So in other news, this is kind of more like, I feel like I should mention this because it's in the news. Andrew Cuomo is accused of unwanted advances by a third woman, adding to what is kind of turning into an avalanche of scandals, from the nursing home cover-ups where he was like misrepresenting the numbers and like forcing the nursing homes to take in hospital patients, to these allegations of inappropriate behavior towards female employees. So frankly, like, dude, just resign. In other news, in the latest in the latest cancel culture crusade, 6 Dr. Seuss books with offensive imagery will no longer be published. This is being seen as like the tipping point in the fight for systemic change and an end to racism. These publishers have agreed to no longer publish these books, no longer print them, which is essentially the same as saying that they're banned forever and they're going to be burned and you can't read them anymore. And it's very concerning to the hardworking American people who are sick and tired of their Dr. Seuss books and their Mr. Potato Heads being targeted by the cancel cultures. So, I mean, watch out. The cancel culture is everywhere and they're coming for you. It's very serious, very serious. Very serious news. In somewhat more serious news, the Georgia Republicans passed a bill that, this is in the House, the Georgia State House, that will impose new voter restrictions on the people in the state. They're very upset that Republicans did not prevail in the last election. They will require more ID for absentee voting. They are going to limit weekend early voting days. This is heading to the Senate, where a committee has already voted to institute a no excuse has taken away no excuse absentee voting. So all these things that they're doing to try to make it more difficult for people to vote clearly have like racial undertones to them. They're clearly like racist in their intent, trying to limit the number of minorities, limit the number of marginalized and poor people who are able to vote in order to maintain their grip on power. Because that's consistently what these kinds of reactionary elements who don't have fundamentally popular ideas try to do, because they understand that if they are actually forced to compete in a level playing field, that they are going to lose, pretty much. So, meanwhile, also in the South, moving slightly west of Georgia, Biden, Stacey Abrams, some celebrities have voiced support for the unionization campaign in Bessemer, Alabama, which kind of started as more of like a locally based statewide thing. Now it's turned into a bigger issue. There's a lot of attention focused on this Amazon facility, and it's already starting to inspire other unionization campaigns in Iowa, such as the one organized by the Teamsters. Locally here in Colorado Springs, we saw a great victory by workers affiliated with the IWW at the Wild Goose and the Good Neighbors coffee houses. They took to the Colorado Labor Board allegations of wage theft, and they actually prevailed, and now they are going to be paid back pay. So just a testament to what unions can do. The workers at this facility in Alabama, which employs 5,800 people, are being given until March 30th to vote by mail to become members of the union. Amazon, in very authoritarian corporate fashion, is trying to convince them that unions are very dangerous, and they're putting up a lot of like anti-union posters and signs, and they're having like mandatory sessions where they talk about the dangers of unions, and they're sending workers text messages and trying to pressure them as much as possible to stop unionizing. And honestly, like, yeah, fuck Amazon. Fuck Amazon. I don't buy shit from them anymore. Although it's hard to like avoid getting involved with them at all. But like, yeah, unionize the shit out of Amazon. And I hope that every single worker at Amazon will see what's happening in Alabama, will see the potential for stuff to happen in Iowa, and will think, okay, I can talk to my coworkers about how do we start a union? How do we and the way to start doing that is to start talking about like, hey, what do you need? What's going on in your life? And what does like the kind of conditions at this job have to do? What effects does it have for you in your daily life? Like, what kind of benefits are we getting offered? What kind of pay are we getting? Does that help us meet our daily needs? What kind of sacrifices are we having to make to work here? What kinds of bullshit are we putting up from the managers? What kinds of improvements can we think of to the systems here that are just impossible to get through to the upper levels of management? Like, it's not even just like, what can it do for me? It's like, hey, if this massive company like runs like a 5% of the nation's economy, like, shouldn't the workers who are like on the floor actually making it work have input in how it's running? Shouldn't they be able to like shape the course of their logistics and give their input? So solidarity with them. It's really cool to see them succeeding. It's great. In other news of like corporate malfeasance, like these giant U.S. evil corporate mini states and their evil machinations. There's evidence that Pfizer has been bullying Argentina and Brazil to get them to put up government buildings as collateral to ensure against exposure to liability associated with their vaccines. This is in addition to already trying to get them to change the laws so that the national governments will be responsible for paying their legal fees if their vaccines do anything bad or like if they have any issues. And meanwhile, you have India and China providing vaccines for free. We did talk about like the fact that like the United States did this kind of America First thing. Well, the other side of that is that the United States corporations have been like just almost blackmailing. Oh, I think the dumpster's here. Are like blackmailing the governments of Argentina and Brazil. So trying to actively compromise their sovereignty. Nigeria, this is follow-up on another story. There were 317 girls reportedly taken hostage from a boarding school in northern Nigeria. 279 of them have been located by the Nigerian government after being taken hostage last week. So that's good. In the past, the Nigerian government has paid ransoms to the groups, which actually turns this into kind of an industry where like they can use the visibility of taking a whole school hostage and taking children hostage to put pressure on the government to give them money. And so President Muhammad Buhari has been trying to avoid paying ransom to them, period, and has been trying to implement more social programs. There's a whole lot going on in Nigeria that it is like too complicated to get into. As far as beyond just the stuff in the north, in the north, there's also the conflicts in the Niger Delta. There's a whole lot of stuff with corruption. There's the dependence on fossil fuels and oil, and the theft of indigenous land. These ethnic conflicts between the Igbos and the Yoruba and the Hausa, and then the Niger Delta peoples and other minor ethnic groups that have made it very hard to establish governmentality in that country, because the government of Nigeria is in itself something that should not necessarily... It's an artificial construction. It really like was constructed as a way of ruling what amounted to like hundreds of different states and stateless societies with their own different systems of government and their own different cultures and languages. And so it's been really hard throughout Nigerian history to establish like, I guess, kind of national integrity and stability. So I try to follow Nigeria's news when I can, because I think it's very important. It's like got so many. It's the largest country in Africa population wise, and it's huge. It's diverse. It's got some really amazing culture. If you ever want to look into it, maybe I'll make a little country overview someday. Egypt and Sudan are urging Ethiopia not to continue filling their Renaissance dam on the Nile River, saying that it threatens 20 million Sudanese with thirst and violates international treaties. They are currently turning to President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC for mediation. So Felix Tshisekedi is, like I said, he's kind of more of a social democrat type of figure. He's now the head of the African Union and is being kind of called upon to intervene in a lot of situations, not just this, but in this situation in particular between these three countries. Ethiopia has been having a lot going on lately. They've also been having violence in the Tigray region. There are refugees from the Tigray region in Ethiopia reporting indiscriminate killings of civilians, rapes, amputations by the Eritrean army, who invaded the region to help support the Ethiopian government. They're fighting against the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which is a left-wing party, previously Marxist-Leninist. They scrubbed references to Marxist-Leninism after the fall of the Soviet Union. And there's a little bit of a history there where both Somalia and Ethiopia would kind of try to position themselves ideologically relative to the Cold War powers in a way that a lot of like newly formed nation states or newly independent nation states did throughout the 20th century. Although Ethiopia wasn't necessarily a colonized country, but it still did go through this very profound process of economic transformation away from a monarchy towards attempts at like a republic, attempts at socialism, attempts at capitalism. And so the Tigray Liberation Front had taken power in 1991. They went out of power in 2018, launched attacks on government facilities in November 2020, and that sparked a violent civil war. The government has been accused of ethnic cleansing. They have refused to pull Eritrean troops out of the region in spite of the reports of abuses, and they've also been arresting journalists and preventing international observers from entering the region. In Haiti, thousands of people have taken to the streets to demand that President Jovenel Moise, who has been ruling by decree for a year because there's currently no parliament, to step down. He is maintaining that his term lasts until February 2022, but the opposition, reports France 24, argues that it should have ended 3 weeks ago in a standoff over disputed elections that's gone on since 2018. So folks there's currently only a third of the senators that are actually in office, which is why he's been ruling by decree. You see like deteriorating conditions in the prisons, and also the prison population going up in Haiti, and that has been coupled with this ongoing problems with corruption, which has a lot to do historically with U.S. interventionism in Haiti, which a lot of people don't realize that like the U.S. Marines and the U.S. government have been heavily involved in maintaining the political status quo in Haiti and propping up dictators and ensuring the dominance of capitalism in that society. So you have these protesters. They've been protesting not only the Haitian government but also the UN for not really like speaking up about President Moise. They're demanding not only the resignation of the president, but the creation of new social programs and the prosecutions of corrupt officials. So definitely a lot of solidarity with our folks in Haiti that are trying to fight for against corruption and trying to take power into their own hands. Really, I think that in a broader sense, it's a worldwide move. There's been a worldwide movement against corruption. Like anti-corruption was huge in Nigeria, it was huge in Brazil, it was huge in the United States, it's huge in Haiti. And whether or not the figures who are using this rhetoric of anti-corruption have good intentions or not, there's a lot of consciousness of the fact that the government and the government officials are like deeply corrupt. And so the only thing that I would say about this kind of thing is if you're trying to get like a transitional government, you're trying to get like these kind of more centralized administered social programs, that's not going to actually empower the people if your revolutionary movement prevails. So I think that it needs to just in general, with all of these situations, with all of these kind of attempts to make life better for the majority of people, it needs to find ways to actually like empower people on the grassroots level. It needs to come from the grassroots. It can't just take a revolution and then try to contain it or institutionalize it, like happened with the PRI in Mexico, the Partido Revolucionario Institucionalizado. I speak Portuguese, so I'm not as good at Spanish. So sorry to all Spanish speakers who I traumatized with my terrible Spanish. But that's all the news that I have for you all today. I hope that you all are... So many noises. I hope that you all are having like a good time with whatever you're doing, and that you're all staying safe. You're all taking some time to meditate and breathe and like think positive thoughts, send positive intentions. Actually, if you send your positive intentions from your third eye to the moon, it will hit at the right time, like especially like right now, it will bounce back, and it will help support the revolutionary energy that is circulating through the world right now, and encourage it to grow up and not get like stifled, because y'all know that the vicious underboot of the state does not like it when the revolutionary energy gets all bloomy. So send that positive energy to the moon, bounce it back to the ground. Revolution. And without further ado, here is the Soviet national anthem.